Welcome back to my Manhwa recap channel. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Don't forget to leave a comment with your feedback. Subscribe now and enjoy the recap.
This was the last time. It's raining, lightning is flashing. The guy in the robe clutches his injured hand, sweat dripping from his face. They had finally cornered the Demon Lord. The four heroes stand in a fighting pose and breathe heavily. The main character's face is smeared with blood. He is a black mage, the weakest class, and his name is Kai. Colette appears before his eyes. She smiles and holds flowers in her hands. Kai frowned decisively. He wanted to guess what he would do after all this, but didn't have time. His comrade was almost hit by a demon attack, but he dodged and shouted to Kai to stop the Demon Lord. Kai summons blood blindness. Everything around is filled with scarlet. The main character is surrounded by bloody limbs. Kai, extending his hand forward, orders blood blindness to blind the Demon Lord. Creepy limbs rush forward. Kai, standing directly in front of the enemy, maintains the spell. The limbs bite into the Demon Lord, and he lets out a terrible scream. Kai shouts for Ares, his comrade, to finish off the demon. Ares bared his teeth in a grin. With his sword he rushed forward. Ares told his brother Kai that they would see each other. Blood sprayed. Kai coughed up blood and flew back. Ares' sword pierced him through the chest. Ares continued to smile evilly. Then, with a decisive cry, he finished off Kai. Dark magic burst from the protagonist's chest. Kai looked back at his comrade in shock. He couldn't believe that Ares had injured him along with the Demon Lord. Kai lies and decays into darkness. With a mad smile, Ares shouts that it was he who crushed the Demon Lord and that now he is a true hero. Turning his head, Kai asked why. Ares wonders why Kai is asking such questions. He is a representative of the strongest class of warriors. A guy and a girl stand behind him, grinning. Covering his face with his hand, Ares shouts at Kai, the damn black magician is an older brother, not to be arrogant and not even try to taste fame. Kai doesn't understand what Ares is even talking about. The guy in white wants to explain everything to Kai. This is the highest class, the righteous, and his name is Jonah. Smiling obnoxiously and covering his face with his hand, Jonah says that something as evil as a black magician as a partner for the upper class is too reckless, even if it is considered an ordeal sent by God. Three former comrades stand and look at the helpless Kai. The latter does not understand what Jonah is even talking about, because although he used black magic, he always helped his comrades. The girl with red hair laughed loudly. Her name is Urza. She is a magical swordswoman, an ultra-rare class. Pointing her finger at Kai, she says that if Kai thinks he really helped them, then he really is too self-confident. She then reminds that Kai is the weakest class and calls him an asshole. Kai is exhausted, blood flowing from his mouth. He had been working as hard as he could for the past 5 years and was only one step away. Kai's thoughts are transported to the past. When they were 15 years old, each of them was given a special role by God, called a class. Two young men kneel before the patriarch. That day Kai became a black magician. He was bullied by his peers. One of them put his foot on the trembling, beaten Kai. The dark magic class is hated because its members are closer to a demon than a human. The black magician is the weakest among other evil forces, which is why he is also called the class of losers. The action moves to the present. Putting her foot on Kai, Urza says that it would be impossible to think that they would treat a member of the weakest class as a person. She wishes Kai death because if he remains alive, her share will be reduced. Ares gripped the hilt of his sword. He plunged it into Kai's back and triumphantly said that Colette now belonged to him. Kai repeated her name to himself. Then he screamed in rage. Memories flashed through his head again. Someone said that the classes of black magician and righteous do not correspond to each other, so the engagement will be broken. Colette's father speaks to a man in a red cloak. Colette rushes to her father and shouts that this is too much, she wants to marry Kai. The father says that at least he allows her to say goodbye to her lover. Kai can't believe all this. Colette remains silent and hesitantly leaves the guard. She closed her eyes sadly. She then removed the gold bracelet from her hand. Approaching Kai, Colette asks to accept him and places the jewelry in his hands. A tear appeared in her eyes. Kai looks at the gift, stunned. Colette asks Kai to take good care of him and bids him farewell. The wind is blowing. The protagonist's face expresses despair. Crying, Colette says that they will definitely see each other again. Ares' evil, mocking laugh pulls Kai out of her memories. Leaning towards Kai's face, Ares says that Colette said to kill him, and his father said so too. The protagonist's father, the head of the authoritative Austen family, was the strongest in the Holy Kingdom. Many brave warriors came from under his hand. Turning around, the father, a stately man with a red mustache, said that he would not tolerate a black magician in his house. Kai is kneeling in front of his father, fear written on his face. His father told him that if he took part in enslaving the Demon Lord, he could return to the Austen family. Kai cannot believe what he heard and, just in case, asks again. The father adds that he will also take care of Kai's engagement to his childhood friend Colette. Soon after this, Colette was imprisoned in one of the rooms of the royal palace. The girl was sitting near the window, holding a cross in her hand and praying. It was used to create the so-called Great Wall, necessary to protect the city. If Kai defeats the Demon Lord, Colette will be freed. They will get married and live happily. The main character is covered in blood. In front of him are the corpses of killed monsters. He made this damn effort to regain his father's trust and bring Colette back. He finally succeeded. Kai looked at his palm with satisfaction. His class level has reached a strength rating of 999. With a nasty smile, Ares tells his brother in his ear that this is a shame. With his arms outstretched, Ares laughed evilly and shouted that because of his invincible younger brother, his elder brother was killed by the Demon Lord. A tear rolls down Kai's cheek. He realized that his father and Ares were simply using him. He cursed in frustration. Ares, raising his sword, says that this useless black magician should stop annoying them. The protagonist's brother promised to take good care of Colette, so let Kai die already. Kai's hand trembles helplessly. A crying Colette appears before his eyes again. If he had known it would be like this, he would have simply taken her with him and they would have run away together. He wouldn't care about other people or common sense, he would just enjoy their happiness together. The bracelet is cracked. Suddenly, Colette's voice reached Kai. She begged him not to die in her arms. Kai hears this voice and regrets everything that happened. He would like to see Colette one last time. The sun is shining brightly. It illuminates the flower in the pot, the bookshelves and the dishes on it. Colette indignantly asks how long Kai plans to sleep. The main character lies on the bed and opens his eyes. Waking up, he abruptly gets out of bed. Kai begins to breathe heavily. Colette peers anxiously into his face. Kai thinks that Colette is imprisoned in the castle, and therefore he does not understand why she is here in front of him. As Colette approaches, she anxiously asks what happened and notices that Kai is covered in sweat. Kai feels his body. There are no wounds on him. Now he doesn't understand what's happening at all. Colette is in front of Kai in all her glory. She smiles and greets him. There is silence in the room. Kai looks at the girl worriedly. She sits on a chair, closing her eyes. Kai thinks something is wrong here. Colette should be in her 20s by now, but she looks very young. Cutely covering her mouth with her hand, Colette asks if Kai is still not awake. She says it's a beautiful day and asks if Kai is okay. Having forced out a smile and a chuckle, Kai asked for forgiveness and said that he really had not yet fully woken up. Suddenly he saw himself in the mirror. There is shock on his face. He realized that he also looked young. Colette persistently repeated so that Kai would finally wake up. Throwing her hands up in joy, she exclaims that today is their class ceremony. She's looking forward to it. Sweat appeared on Kai's face. He stupidly asked about the determination ceremony twice. Rushing towards Colette, Kai took her by the shoulders and asked what year it was. Approaching the girl's face, Kai asked if he was not yet a black magician. Colette blushed a little. Kai thinks it's all a dream. Colette pushed Kai away with force. She turned away in embarrassment and said that Kai was too close. Kai listens to his feelings and understands that this is not a dream. Could he go back in time? Putting his hand forward, Kai apologized to Colette, but then he saw something strange. He began to examine his palm. Then he brought it closer to his face. There's a mark on his hand, and Kai doesn't understand why. Colette also notices the mark. She asks if this is a class crest and doesn't understand why Kai already has a class assigned. Kai clenched his teeth. He can't believe what's happening. If he really went back in time, then his coat of arms would not exist yet either. Why does he already have a coat of arms in class even before the determination ceremony? It suddenly dawned on him. Kai opened the status, and 3 blue system windows appeared in front of him. Kai reads the information on them. There is no difference from what it was before he died. The name, class, level remained the same as they were before death from the Sword of Ares. Then Kai notices a strange phrase at the end. It says status is blocked, log in a second time. Kai looks at this sentence in bewilderment and stupidly repeats it. He began to think. Inexplicable things happen one after another, but one thing is obvious to him. Right now he is in the past. With a serious face, Kai works with the system window. He assumes that this is some kind of magic, but immediately discards this assumption because what happened to him is beyond the limits of any existing magical powers. No one can do such a thing, not even a demon lord. Kai remembers hearing Colette's voice before he passed out. Colette calls Kai loudly and snaps him out of his thoughts. Grabbing his hand, the girl worries if everything is okay with him. She wanted to say something else about the coat of arms, but stopped mid-sentence. A gold bracelet slipped out from under the blanket. It fell with a clang to the floor at Colette's feet. The pebble in the center is broken. Colette, smiling, says that she thought she had lost this bracelet, but it turns out it was here. She picked him up from the floor. There is horror in Kai's eyes. Memories from a past life flash before him, a crying Colette, who says that they will definitely see each other again, and her scream, which the main character heard before his death. Kai resolutely got out of bed. Now everything is clear to him. It's all about the bracelet. This is the power of Colette, the power of the righteous. Kai starts laughing. Colette looks at him blankly and remains silent. Kai hugs her and says it was her. Tears welled up in his eyes. He says that if they know how everything happened that time, then they can change the future. Colette asks him to wait. There is complete misunderstanding in her eyes. She asks again, is Kai really a black magician? The guy is sure that he will change his future. With his head pressed against Colette's shoulder, Kai says he won't let her leave again. Colette blushed. She asks what Kai is even talking about. Then Kai realized that he was behaving strangely. He pulled away from Colette and tried to explain everything to her. Turning to the side, Colette says it's not that she didn't like it, but it was very sudden. Kai surprised her. Colette says that she is his fiancée. Kai looks at her. Colette says that if he wants such things, then it's okay. Kai rubs his temple. He starts talking about getting engaged. He wants to say what will happen to this matter as soon as his father finds out that he is a black magician. It's clear from Colette's look that she understands what will happen. Kai's father, who rejected him, appears before his eyes. Kai says that some people believe that black magicians are closer to demons, wants to finish his thought about betrothal, but Colette interrupts him. She says that there is not much difference between black mages and other classes, because at the end of the day, Kai is Kai. The protagonist, in turn, thinks that Colette is still the same Colette, who has not changed at all. She did not change her mind when she found out that he was a black magician. Even though everyone hated him, she always extended her hand to him. Kai doesn't believe in people, but with Colette it's different. He expected this from her. Kai wants to say something to Colette and asks her not to be surprised by this. Colette asks what happened. Showing the mark on his hand, Kai says that he returned from the future 5 years ago, and that he is now a black magician with level 999. Colette cannot believe this. Kai tries to prove to her the veracity of his words. He begins to activate the spell. A bloody fog swirled around him. Kai calls upon the archdemon to rise from the depths of the earth. The blood demon bursts out with a terrible roar. Colette screamed and looked at the monster. She asked if it was really a demon. Kai said yes, he called him from hell. In front of him is a bloody pictogram. Kai says that level 999 black magicians can enter into contracts with such high-level demons as the archdemon. Kai works intently with the pictogram and continues to think. The fact that since the first time this contract was made, it is still in effect proves that he can use all his knowledge of black magic without problems. And most importantly, he has proven that the first time was real. Colette looks at Kai with concern, and he smiles calmly. He thinks that he and the archdemon wanted to see each other in person, and now he and Colette have turned the dream into reality. In that case, Kai will have to hurry, but he simply doesn't have time because today is the class determination ceremony. Kai decided that the demon lord would be born today. A huge monster appears in front of Kai, smoke flowing around him. Colette screamed in fright and fell to her knees. The demon's eyes glow red. He calls Kai his master and asks him for instructions. A scarlet glow appears around Kai. He smiled decisively. Colette is still sitting on the floor, looking at the monster in fear and calling out to Kai. A huge demon kneels before Kai. The guy turned around, playing with the crimson light on his finger. With a smile, he scratches his head and apologizes to Colette for scaring her. He further says that now it is obvious to her that he is a level 999 black magician. Smiling, Colette says that she did not immediately doubt his words, because he would never lie to her. But she was surprised. Kai wants to say something to Colette, but she won't let him. Walking up to him and taking his hands, Colette says that this is incredible. She had heard that even 10 holy knights could not defeat the archdemon. Kai says that black magicians are not able to master other skills, but they can use all types of magic, and they can also cast many powerful spells. This is great for Colette. Kai smiles. After a short silence, he tells Colette to listen carefully. Colette fell silent. The smile disappeared from her face. Kai says that today she will receive the righteous class and Ares the warrior class. Colette says that Ares is another warrior born into the Austin family, but Kai interrupts her and shouts that this is bad. He wants to say what will happen if Ares becomes a warrior. Suddenly he sees a silhouette in the doorway behind Colette. This is Ares. He asks if his brother called him. Fury appeared in Kai's eyes. He blocked Colette with himself and asked Ares what happened. Walking into the middle of the room, Ares asks what about the archdemon, is he really not here anymore? The pentagram glowed scarlet. Kai frowned. Colette looked at him. Kai asked Ares what archdemon he was talking about. With a smug look on his face, Ares says that it doesn't matter anymore. He clarifies that Colette and Kai were talking about him, and evaluates his brother as a candidate for the role of a warrior who discusses the others behind their backs. Colette says emphatically that Kai did not discuss Ares behind his back. The latter approaches the girl. Approaching her face, he asks why she shouldn't be with him. Kai defends Colette, pushes Ares away and tells him to stand down. Kai orders his brother to leave now. Drawing his sword from its sheath, Ares asks what will happen if he says he doesn't want to. Kai shields Colette with his hand. The pentagram begins to splatter blood. Kai fingers a small purple lump on his fingers. Ares notices that Kai's hands are shaking and calls him a weakling. Colette screams for Ares to stop. The two brothers look at each other with hatred. Colette's face looks frightened. A strange voice is heard here. The man, standing in the doorway, tells Mr. Ares that the Duke called him. Sheathing his sword, Ares declared that he was on his way. Kai is silent. Colette looks at him with concern. Kai invites her to go too, and Colette agrees. They leave, Ares looking after them. Kai and Colette smile and laugh with each other. Ares is offended by this and is furious. A cart is driving along a city street and people are walking. Kai and Colette walk together. People look after them touchingly. Kai says that he feels some kind of nostalgia from the city and the people. Colette says he hasn't been here for a long time. Someone calls Kai master. Kai wonders why this is so, but then he understands everything. People treat him politely because they don't yet know that he is a black magician. The man in the chef's hat with a smile thanks Kai for getting rid of those scoundrels. Colette and Kai continue to walk along the street along the stalls. Colette, smiling, tells Kai that everyone is happy to see him and that's because he always works his hardest. Kai is sullenly silent. Colette looked at him sadly. The guy invited her to continue their conversation. Colette agreed. They walked past houses. Kai continued his story. A little later, Ares will receive the warrior class at the ceremony, but then he will make a big mistake. Because of Ares, the demon lord Graiselda will be born, an evil, huge cloud of darkness. Because of this, in just 3 days the holy kingdom will perish. Colette exhaled. Cold sweat broke out on her face. Kai says that in fact the area will remain, but some of the people will be killed. He reveals that to protect the remainder of the holy city, a great barrier will be erected, and to maintain it, Colette will be imprisoned in the royal palace. Kai adds that he will be classed as a black magician and will be expelled from the Austen family. It turns out that he and Colette will be separated. Colette, looking into Kai's face, exclaimed that she did not want this, that she always wanted to be with him. Kai looks at her, stunned. With his arm around her waist, he asks if Colette will go with him and suggests they stay together. Blushing, Colette asks if Kai is proposing to her. Closing her eyes, she rushes into his arms and says that she is very happy and offers to always be together. They hug. Kai realizes that in his first life he was stupid. He thanks Colette. Kai realizes that he was stupid. It would have been better if he had hugged Colette like that from the beginning. Now she is sitting on a horse in traveling clothes. Kai says that she needs to hide for a while in the village of Lacus, where she will reach in 3 days. This way she will avoid the consequences that the war will bring. Colette put on her hood and asked if Kai would go with her. Kai bit his lip. Putting his hand to his chest, he said that he would stop Ares and prevent the birth of the demon lord. Colette, in general, expected this from Kai. She told him to try his best to protect everyone. As she sets off, she waves to Kai and says that she will wait for him, let him promise not to delay and to pick her up as soon as possible. With a smile, Kai says that he will solve everything and come for her right away. He promises her this. However, Colette is wrong. In fact, Kai does this act not for the sake of everyone else, but for his own sake. Kai is going to save Graiselda from the clutches of Ares before she becomes a demon lord and build friendly relations with evil spirits. Cooperation with demons is necessary to counter the consequences of the future. Kai realized this truth in his battle against the demon lord. The demon lord's eyes glow red as she furiously says that she has finally met Sasha's enemy, a warrior whom she will never forgive. Ares scratches his head and casually says that the ruler came from the past. He remembers that something like that happened. The Lord's eyes flashed with rage. No one could have imagined that the harbinger of peace, the warrior, would be the cause of the destruction of humanity. If Kai had saved Graiselda's friend, Sasha, then perhaps he would have stopped the birth of the demon lord. Kai's hand is enveloped in a bloody mist. His palm mark glowed red and Kai raised his hand up. He is serious and determined. Now it's time to start a rebellion against this destiny. Someone is coming down the stairs. At the foot of the steps there is a passage from which light pours in. Stroking the whip in his hands, Ares asks the girl if he has changed his mind yet. He says this is the last time he asks. The girl's hands are shackled. She coughs up blood, and it falls in a clump onto the stone floor. The girl sits pressed against the wall. She is beaten and scared. Her name is Graiselda. Ares orders her to kill Kai. Graiselda decisively raises her head and indignantly asks if Ares really wants her to kill his twin brother. She thinks it's disgusting and declares that she doesn't take orders from dirty jerks like him. Ares whipped her and said that she didn't seem to know what happens when someone disobeys orders. Graiselda closed one eye in pain. Her shackles glowed red. These are handcuffs to contain magical power. Graiselda tries in vain to take them off. Towering over her and clutching his whip, Ares asks what she plans to do. He looks down at her. Sitting down next to Graiselda, Ares tells her to know her place and calls her his slave. Griselda looks at him angrily. Gritting his teeth, Ares orders her to go and kill Kai right now. He says that there is a prophecy that a warrior will be born today, and it will probably be his brother. Ares is sure that after this Kai and Colette will get married, and that's the worst thing for Ares. Griselda looks at him and is silent. With a pitiful expression on his face, Ares shouts that he will not allow this to happen. Colette and the title of warrior should belong only to him. The warrior class is endless combat power, just an attribute of this class, defined by God as the strongest. Being special is the privilege of a warrior, namely, entering a house without asking, stealing, damaging property, and all this is approved by the law. Ares thinks this is the best and yells that no one can go against the only being who can defeat the demon lord. If Ares becomes a warrior, he can have any woman he wants. Saliva is flowing from his mouth. Sighing dreamily, Ares said that he wanted to be a warrior. Then Kai appears before his eyes. Ares is jealous because all these warrior privileges belong to his brother. Ares shouts that he will definitely receive warrior status if Griselda kills Kai, and today is his last chance. Trembling, Griselda firmly says that it is not at all noble to want to become a warrior simply because you want women. Ares became enraged at these words. He insulted Griselda and began to beat her. Ares yells at her to just go and kill Kai already, otherwise why did he buy her? Squinting in pain, Griselda tells Ares to stop underestimating her, because she is an honorary vampire with the blood of a demon lord running through her veins. She states that even if Ares kills her, she is not going to carry out his orders. Standing over her, Ares says that Griselda is just useless trash and he spent all his money on her. After a short pause, he takes the sword out of its sheath and offers to do everything as Griselda wants. Raising his sword, Ares shouts that he will kill her, let her regret her choice. Griselda closes her eyes. The other girl is also shackled, and she begs Ares to stop all this. Ares measures the girl with a contemptuous look. Griselda shouts to the girl, Sasha, to be quiet since she woke up. Sasha is exhausted and beaten. She said quietly that she would not do this, even if it was Mrs. Griselda's order. Ares stands in front of Sasha, stroking his sword. Sasha tells him that he will go and kill Kai and asks him to free Griselda. Ares suddenly places his foot on Sasha's face. Standing over her, he repeats what he just heard. Then he disgustedly calls Sasha a low-class demon. As Ares walked away, he said that Kai was the Austin family's precious child. Then, without hesitation, he slashed across Sasha's chest. She screamed. Griselda looks at all this with horror and calls Ares a freak. He looked at her. Then he smiled disgustingly. Grabbing Sasha's face, Ares asked Griselda if this maid was really so important to her. A chuckle escaped his mouth. Griselda is in despair. Ares says that he finds her funny. There are always demons like her who behave like people. Putting the sword to Sasha's throat, Ares said that his father also did many such things. He cut the girl's throat. Griselda understands that there is no choice. Ares tells her that he is only giving her one chance and makes her say that she will obey the orders of Mr. Ares and that her insignificant self is the faithful slave of Mr. Ares. Griselda sits helplessly on her knees in front of him. With a nasty smile, Ares tells her to just repeat after him, because even a stupid demon like her is capable of this. For Griselda, this is humiliation. Pointing his sword at Sasha, Ares said that Griselda's precious servant would soon die. Griselda bit her lip. Ares raised his sword and Griselda shouted that enough was enough. She is shaking and breathing heavily. Sasha asks her mistress not to worry about her. But Griselda had already come to terms with her humiliation and said that she needed Sasha. She sighed. Then, with a little delay, she began to say that she would obey Master Ares. Sasha shouts that the lady cannot just betray her honor. There are tears in her eyes, but her eyebrows are drawn together resolutely. Griselda breaks off and looks at Sasha. With a look that didn't bode well, Ares told the two to stop ignoring him. Then he threw the sword over his shoulder and said that he understood everything. He wishes them death and swings his sword. An incomprehensible knock is heard. The lattice doors were clogged. Ares, left with the sword raised in his hand, looked there. The eyes of his older brother looked at him from there. Ares broke out in a cold sweat. Kai broke down the door with a spell, everything lit up scarlet. The two girls look on in shock. A red mark is visible through the raised dust. Kai stands in front of Griselda, who looks at him with all her eyes. Kai's hand is enveloped in scarlet fog. The pentagram on the door becomes brighter and brighter. Kai yells at Ares not to do this. Ares looks at Kai in bewilderment. Blood is flowing from Sasha's wound. Kai rushes at Ares. His fist glows with magic. A pentagram flies. Ares doesn't have time to figure out what's happening. Kai hits him hard and Ares flies back. With force he crashes into the wall. Blood spews from his mouth. Griselda and Sasha look at all this in surprise. Kai looks at them. He approaches the girls. Both are still silent. Kai is glad he made it. Ares sits motionless near the wall. Stuttering, Griselda asks Kai who he is. Kai, in turn, asks Griselda if it is her and if she wants to become the Demon King. Griselda sits and does not understand what is happening and what Kai is even talking about. King. Looking at Sasha, Kai concluded that it was Sasha. She weakly calls out to her mistress. Kai calls Ares a bastard. Griselda wonders how the main character knows their names, but Kai is in no hurry to answer. He uses restoration magic, Dark Hill on who understands that this is dark magic. She closes her eyes blissfully. Griselda exclaims in shock that her wounds were instantly healed. Kai, holding his hands out to the sides, says that he will also heal Griselda's wounds. Griselda is his former enemy, but now in front of him is not a king who killed many people, but a little girl who was made a slave. Kai uses Dark Heal on Griselda as well, and she is enveloped in magic. Then the main character breaks the shackles of both. Griselda says with surprise and joy that the shackles have disappeared, and so have her wounds. The vile magic of slavery also disappeared. Touching her face, Griselda says that it all happened only in a moment. She rushes to Sasha. Both have tears of joy in the corners of their eyes. They hug and shout joyfully that they are finally free. Kai looks at them with a calm, kind smile. Crying, Sasha says that she thought they were finished when their territory was taken away by Urza the Demon Slayer. Kai tensed. He clarifies whether she is really talking about the Urza who is the red-haired magical swordswoman. Griselda, with a dissatisfied face, asks if Kai knows her, and he answers positively. Both girls got angry, and Sasha asked if Kai and Urza were really at the same time. Kai answered through gritted teeth that no. He says that Urza destroyed many demon lands, gathering thousands of adventurers. Her goal is money. She sold the stolen demons and accumulated wealth for herself. She was against demons, and for this she was supported by people, and also due to her fame and youth, she was taken into the team of adventurers. Kai firmly states that he wants nothing to do with her. Griselda looks at him with respect. She says that she has not thanked Kai yet and that she needs to thank him deeply. She asks his name. The main character introduces himself as Kai Austin. Griselda now understands that the man in front of her is Ares' older brother. She asked why Kai decided to save them, the demons, since he wanted to become a hero. Kai asks them for help. Griselda can't believe her ears. Kai shows his mark on his hand and says that he is nothing to human society. Griselda's eyes widen. She asks in surprise whether Kai really is a dark magician. Sasha deduces that Kai uses dark magic, but one thing still remains strange to her. She doesn't understand how Kai, at such a young age, can already use two high magics at the same time. Griselda doesn't really believe what happened either. Kai wonders out loud what Ares' goal is. Sasha turns to Mrs. Griselda. The latter resolutely declares that she believes Kai. Sasha says Ares wants to kill Kai and gain the title of hero. Kai is surprised by this. Ares is still unconscious. Kai thinks that his brother wanted to kill him from that moment on. Griselda stands up and proudly declares that she refused Ares because she is a great king, and the king will not help some scoundrel. Sasha left. Griselda looked lovingly at her maid. She turns to Kai and says that if it weren't for him, she would have lost an important friend. The image of a demon lord appears in the main character's head. He furrowed his eyebrows, pursed his lips, and looked away. Now everything is clear to him. Griselda became very desperate and killed many people out of resentment. And all this happened because of Ares. Kai walked up to his little brother. He looked at him with a terrible look. Ares continued to be unconscious, his head slightly lowered to his chest. As Kai prepares the spell, he wonders if he should kill him right now. He remembers all the evil words he said to him at the end of the battle with the Demon Lord. Clenching his teeth, Kai almost decides to kill Ares. But suddenly he remembers Colette, how the three of them and Ares were friends together. Then Kai realizes something. If he kills Ares now, Colette will be very bitter. Kai froze. Griselda approached him and asked what he was going to do. Kai closed his eyes. He thought about it. There was silence. Kai, Griselda, and Sasha stand over Ares. Kai puts his hand to his forehead and reads some kind of spell. A red lizard emerges from his forehead. She crawls into Ares' mouth. Sasha states this fact. Kai dusts off his hands. Griselda covers her mouth with her hand. She asks if it's a curse and she's right. Scarlet patterns appear on Ares' face. Griselda wonders what this curse is. Kai says that this curse will make Ares' life hell. The scarlet pattern on the younger brother's right cheek disappears. Ares is still unconscious. Sasha asks what it means to turn life into hell. Kai tells her that she will understand everything later. The pattern left by the curse turned red on Ares' forehead. Griselda walked up to him and examined him. Her eyes sparkled and she said with a smile that this was good magic. There is not even a shadow of a smile on Sasha's face. She says there isn't even a demon who can use the magic of darkness so masterfully. For her, everything becomes more and more mysterious. Kai scratches his head and wants to explain everything. Then he notices something. The girls' clothes are short and torn. Looking away, Kai offered them clothes. Griselda and Sasha looked at themselves, and Sasha covered her chest a little with her hand. Putting his hand forward, Kai activates dark magic, the dark cabinet spell. He puts his hand into the resulting cloud of darkness. Kai fumbles around and mutters that he should have clothes to cover up here and finds them. Holding the clothes in his hands, Kai suggests that the girls change their clothes somewhere else. They go upstairs together. Bright room. Griselda can't wait for Sasha to change her clothes, and she, with a serious face, asks Kai to go to another room. Kai smiles awkwardly. He didn't mean to peek. As he walks down the hallway, he thinks it's almost noon and Ares is about to be given the hero class. Wandering around the room, Kai thinks that all damage except the curse will restore his resurrection skill. All that remains for Kai is to deal with the holy sword. Opening the door slightly, Griselda called Kai. He turned around. Griselda is wearing a dress with an apron and is apparently very pleased with her outfit. With a smile, she tells Kai that this is the first time she has worn something like this. With a laugh, Kai replies that it suits her. Griselda blushed and awkwardly thanked him. Sasha asks how Kai dared to dress her mistress in a maid costume. With a smile, Griselda approaches Sasha and says that the dress suits her. Sasha thanks Griselda. Kai asks the girls to give him some time. He needs to explain something to them. The fire is crackling in the fireplace, the girls are sitting on the sofa, and the main character is in the chair opposite them. There is shock on the girls' faces. Griselda excitedly asks if Kai really came from the future and she is the demon lord. Kai says that this is not all and continues his story. He says that in the future, Ares killed him, and his team of adventurers also betrayed him. Kai says that's why he doesn't trust people. There is bitterness and pain on his face. Sasha concludes, if we consider it true that Kai is from the future, then we can understand why he is so good at magic. She adds that she believes it is true that Griselda became the Demon King. Griselda turns sharply on her. With a decisive smile, she says that if Kai wanted to deceive them, he would have come up with a more interesting lie, and especially since she now owes him her life. Smiling, Kai looks at her. Griselda asks what they should do now. Kai declares that they will destroy Urza. Griselda became excited. She asked loudly if it was true. She then reveals that Urza made their people slaves and stole all the fossils, and now their people are still in torment. Griselda wrinkles the folds of her apron and sadly closes her eyes. Putting his hand to his chest, Kai promises that he will return everything. With a sparkle in her eyes, Griselda asks if Kai will save their people. Kai nodded silently. Griselda bursts into tears. She says that now she can look into the face of the father who left them. Sasha agrees with the mistress, and tears are also visible in her eyes. Kai clasps his hands in his lap. In return, he asks to let him and Colette live here and says that they are engaged to her. Now Griselda understands why Kai wants her to help him. She says she has nothing against it. Kai says that Colette should be given the title of Righteous today. Griselda abruptly stops him and says that if the Holy Maiden is brought here, then people from the Holy Kingdom may pursue her. With a determined frown, Kai tells them to rely on him. He wanted to say what he would do if the Holy Kingdom attacked, but he didn't have time. The house shook and the vase fell. Kai quickly understood what was happening. A crack ran through the house, and he quickly carried two girls out of there in his arms. There is a scarlet light around him. Griselda closed her eyes in fear. Then all three turned back. A voice is heard asking the three of them why they moved so quickly. Everything is on fire. Someone is emerging from these ashes. Sasha covers for Griselda. Kai realizes that the time has come and tells them to save themselves. Griselda's face was distorted with anger. She does not understand why everything happened so quickly. The whole house is engulfed in flames. The fire is crackling. Ares comes out from here. With a mad smile, he loudly asks the main character how he is doing. Kai looks at him angrily. Ares calls Kai his brother. There is a mark on his hand. Ares laughed like crazy. Kai looks at him seriously, and Ares disgustedly tells him that he made a face. Then he notices a mark on Kai's hand. Ares knows that this is the mark of a dark magician. He sarcastically feels sorry for his brother and asks how he is going to become a hero with such useless magic. Proudly displaying his mark, Ares declared that he would be the hero. Kai noted to himself that the resurrection skill was already in effect. He said out loud that Ares had become a hero after all. Saliva sprays from Ares' mouth, and he yells that he has won, that he will now be in charge. Griselda looks at Ares with disgust and is indignant. For her, there can be no worse hero. Covering his face with his hand, Ares tells Kai that he smeared him well, and now he will thank him. Ares extends his hand forward. He says that he never thought he would receive this item and summons the holy sword Durandal. Lightning flashes from the sky. Ares holds a sword in his hand and proudly says that this is the sword of a hero, which proves that he is the most important here. Griselda asks if this is the same sword. Sasha says that the amount of magical energy in him is frightening. Griselda begins to doubt that Kai will be able to cope with him. Kai, gritting his teeth, noted to himself that Durandal was the sword that killed him the first time. There's a fire burning behind. Smiling smugly, Ares declares that his big brother can beg for mercy and draws the tip of his sword. Standing in front of him, Kai says that it means Ares pointed the sword at him. The latter asks whether the difference in strength is really not clear to the dark magician. Leaning back slightly, Ares shouts that he is a hero and no one can win against a sword with the strongest magical energy. A chuckle escapes his mouth and he tells Kai to repent for going against justice. Lowering his head, Kai told Ares to stop scratching his tongue and attack. Looking decisively at his brother, the main character says that he will show him hell. Ares' face twists into a disgusted expression. Will Kai really show him hell? The main character beckoned him with his hand. A light wind is blowing. With a calm smile, Kai says that he will break Ares' sword in half because if the magic of darkness had lost, then he would not have gone outside for a long time. Ares lights up with excitement, he is interested, and he shouts that Kai wants to die. Rushing into the attack with the sword, Ares shouts that he will show him now. Kai easily dodges the blow. He notes to himself that the sword really has strong magical energy, but such manners will not take him. Kai dodges sword swings over and over again. He stands in front of his tired brother, safe and sound. Ares asks as Kai dodges. The main character tells Ares to himself that although he is a hero, his strength is lower than that of the first level. Then the bell rings. A notification arrives that Kai has received a limited hidden class for a second life, the Dark Star. Kai doesn't understand what it is, but he dodges Ares' blow. This is the first time Kai has heard about such a class. In a rage, Ares raises his sword and rushes at Kai, but the latter has no time for this. He reads system messages that say that the Dark Star is a special class that can only be obtained by those who ideally mastered dark magic in their first life. Also, with the help of a dark star, you can remember various dark skills. Kai dodges another blow. The system tells him that if he engages in evil, he will accumulate evil points, which can then be exchanged for skills. Kai understands that he must do evil in order to gain skills, but he is not sure that he is capable of such a thing. The bell rings. The system congratulates Kai. He doesn't understand anything yet. The system says that Kai performed an excellent deed and received 1,000 points. But the main character still doesn't understand why, because he didn't do anything. The system explains that the fact is that Kai saved the demon and is now confronting the hero. Now everything is clear to Kai because he really committed an evil act, and if so, then everything else will be simple. Another swing of the sword from Ares. The system shows a list of possible skills to obtain. Kai does not study it for long, but carefully. He chooses to summon the demon sword. A bell rings and the system notifies that Kai has received the skill challenge of the demon sword for 1,000 points. Ares, furious, continues to swing his sword and asks why Kai is looking back. However, he is already standing behind him. Kai says that Ares was late, that now he cannot be hit. Not understanding anything, Ares turns around. Kai's hand is enveloped in a crimson mist. He summons the demon sword Dilfing. The ground is cracked. Ares stepped back from the crack, from which a sword appeared with a scarlet glow and a curved blade. Kai caught him. He knows that the sword in his hand is the sword of the demon lord, Regressed. The demon sword Dilfing is enhanced in proportion to the dark magical energy. The blade of the sword is shrouded in crimson fog. For Kai, a dark mage with level 999, this weapon is simply perfect. Kai's shadow falls on Ares, who, bravely, asks what kind of sword Kai is holding in his hands. Kai is silent in response. Kai raised his sword, which absorbs his magical energy. Kai examines his sword and wonders what kind of thing it is. Regressed recognizes this sword as her father's demon sword. There is surprise on both girls' faces. Ares is confused, and just in case, he asked again if it was really a demon sword. Kai swung his sword, and scarlet cut through the air, but Ares was not affected. With a forced smile, Ares asked Kai where he was aiming. The houses behind Ares were cut in half. The smile on Ares' face disappeared. He turned around carefully, his face a little sweaty. Ares looks at the collapsing buildings, and Kai strokes the blade of his sword and believes that he cannot control his power. Ares looks at Kai furiously. He indignantly asks what this is, how is this even possible, and is this the power of the demon sword? Kai says to himself that it's not entirely true, that his magical energy is simply converted into the power of destruction. With a mad smile, Ares wants to say something to Kai. He then begins to laugh nervously, throwing his head up, and ironically says that Kai scared him. Ares asks if Kai knows about the law of the cycle of elements. He says that the holy sword is the element of light, and the sword of demons is the element of darkness. Holding a shining blue sword in front of him, Ares explains that when the holy sword hits the darkness, its strength increases many times over. He focuses on how his sword Durandal sparkles. Kai is jealous and wonders what Ares will do with the strongest sword of light. With a determined smile, Ares declares that he will now show Kai the power of the holy sword. The opponents stand opposite each other. The younger brother is enveloped in blue flames and lightning. Kai invites him to attack. Ares screamed. He immediately rushed at Kai with death wishes and dealt the final blow, shouting that this is the strength of a hero. A huge cloud of uncontrollable energy rushes towards Kai. Sasha covers her eyes with her hand. Regressed shouts that this is too big a cloud of magical energy that cannot be avoided. She says that if the magic hits the target, then even Kai, but she couldn't finish. The attack rushes straight at the main character and illuminates his face with light. An explosion occurs. After the magic goes away, the dust clears and Ares sees just damaged earth. Sasha can't believe her eyes. Griselda too, despair on their faces. Ares exhaled with a satisfied smile. Then he laughed and noted that not a speck of dust remained. He begins to yell that his time has come, that now everything belongs to him, money, land, and fame. Licking his lips, Ares said that now women also belong to him, which means that Colette is now his. Griselda fell to her knees and called out to Kai helplessly. Ares turned around and with a disgusting smile said that one should not let someone like that escape. He says that Griselda and Sasha will be next. Sasha shields her mistress and looks angrily at Ares. However, Kai was simply waiting for the right moment. He suddenly appeared behind Ares. Kai used dark magic, instant movement, and asked if Ares really thought he had won. Ares recoiled in bewilderment. In fact, the demon sword did not cause any damage to the holy sword, but when Ares used the final blow, Kai temporarily neutralized its magical energy. In his first life, the protagonist had seen this weak point of the holy sword many times, so now it's time to act. Kai shouts for the hero's sword to disappear from this world and swings his demon sword. Ares put up the holy sword in defense. Kai knows he can break it and hits the blade. The blade is cracked. The tip of the sword flew off. Ares looks lost at his broken sword. A crack in the blade created an explosion of magic, and Ares was thrown upward. As he fell to the ground, blood sprayed from his mouth. Kai is exhausted. The demon sword lived up to its name. It uses a lot of magical energy, and Kai only used it for 15 minutes. Then he realizes that if he had used this sword at the first level, he would have died instantly. Kai thinks that Dark Star is a very problematic skill. The notification bell rings. The system congratulates the main character for breaking the holy sword and defeating the hero, and notifies him that he has received 3,000 points. Griselda calls Kai. She is glad that he is alive and that he defeated Ares. Sasha, folding her arms across her chest, smiles. Playing with the magic in his hand, Kai smiles contentedly. All three stand over the defeated Ares. Kai states that he is breathing. Griselda wonders how soon Ares will wake up. Kai replies that not soon and explains this by saying that resurrection is possible only once a day. The mark on Ares' forehead left by the curse begins to crack. Griselda exclaims that the curse has begun to take effect. It crawled up to Ares' hand. Kai says that when his brother wants to harm someone, his light mark will change to a dark mark. This is what the curse is. The mark of light, that is, the mark of a hero, is considered honorable, and the dark mark is its complete opposite. The mark on Ares' hand changed from light to dark. Kai says that Ares has now become a fake, pretending to be a hero, which means now the Austin family will lose their glory. Kai says that this is his revenge on Ares and his father, who took his life. Damn, broken holy sword, now we can consider that Ares died as a hero. Ares looks up with unseeing eyes. Then Kai turns around and becomes wary. Are they really making a noise? The street is empty. Suddenly Griselda addresses Kai as master. The main character is stunned by this. Griselda, humbly closing her eyes, says that Kai broke the holy sword and defeated the hero. Baring her fangs in a smile, Griselda shouted that Kai was now the savior of demons. Placing her hand to her chest, Griselda emphatically states that, without a doubt, Kai will now be the new demon king. The main character is shocked by this turn of events. Forest. The horse drinks water from the lake. Colette wonders how Kai is doing there. The archdemon, now in the form of a red ball, tells her not to worry. He is sure that Kai was probably able to resist the appearance of the demon king. Colette is sitting on a large stone. She hopes her lover is safe. The archdemon confidently says that in the current world there is no one who can compare with Mr. Kai. Colette agreed with a smile and stroked him. She says she's surprised a demon can get so small. The archdemon asks her to be calmer. Flying out of her hands, he explains to her that his current form is nothing more than a temporary form for movement. He says he will protect her. Colette laughed and said that the archdemon flaps its wings very cutely. Suddenly the archdemon noticed something and told him to hide. Silhouettes of horsemen can be seen in the distance. Colette doesn't understand why she needs to hide. The archdemon explains to her that they have probably been searching for her with all their might since they learned that the strongest holy maiden was missing. Colette obeys the archdemon. There is bitterness and fear in her eyes. She asks Kai to come to her soon. Griselda calls Kai the demon king. She rushes to him, and he still can't believe it. He asks again if he understood correctly that he is the king of demons, and Griselda answers positively. Kai tries to calm Griselda down and says that being able to use the demon sword does not make him a king. Sasha stands aside. Griselda's eyes sparkle with joy. She says that only those who have the Demon King class can receive the summoning of the demon sword, and this is her proof. Sasha confirms this. She says that Kai broke the holy sword and defeated the hero, did what no previous Demon King could achieve, and therefore Kai is the one who deserves to be called the strongest Demon King. Her face is serious and collected. Kai looks at the girls and realizes that he has problems. It seems they really believe that he is the Demon King. Rubbing his chin, Kai looks at it from the other side. It will only benefit him if the demons accept him. He looks away and repeats his status out loud. Holding out her index finger, Griselda says that to become the Demon King, you only need to do one thing: enter into a servant's contract. Kai clearly didn't expect this. Griselda asks if he really doesn't know about him. She explains that the servant's contract is a special skill of the Demon King. The one who made the contract receives a class from the Demon King and becomes many times stronger, and in return he swears absolute obedience. Kai looks at his status and says that he does not have such a skill as servants. Suddenly, right before his eyes, new skills appeared to be acquired. Among them is the servant's contract. It costs 300 points, and to open it, you need to destroy the hero's holy sword. After the final battle, Kai now qualifies. The classes he can give through the contract are Demon Captain, Demon Warrior, and 4 Heavenly Kings. Now everything is clear to Kai. It means that thanks to the servant's contract, the warrior of the Demon King was strong. Here the main character notices another system sign, on which it is written that the contract is concluded only with the consent of both parties. A change in class or its removal is possible, and those who decide to oppose the owner will be killed. Kai rereads the last word more carefully. He then tensely asks if this is a real contract. Griselda answers positively. She says that the fathers will stated that he must swear allegiance if a new Demon King appears. A light wind is blowing. With her hands open, palms up, Griselda says that she trusts Kai and he has nothing to lose. Kai sighed. From this conversation he concluded that they agreed that he should be their king. Kneeling down, Griselda states that they rather wish it, and Sasha says that it is an honor for them. The system notifies that the main character has received the skill contract of a servant. A class badge hovers above the protagonist's palm. He turns to Sasha and tells her that he is giving her the Demon Warrior skill. Sasha is a little shocked by this. Griselda puts a reassuring hand on her shoulder. She says with a smile that Demon Warriors are chosen not only by strength, but by loyalty. Kai is waiting for an answer. Sasha closed her eyes. She then asked her master to make her a Demon Warrior and swears absolute loyalty to him. Kai agrees. He gives Sasha the Demon Warrior class. A seal appears above her head. A mark begins to appear on her hand. Sasha feels that strength is flowing through her and looks at her hands in surprise. Griselda looks at this with shock and fear and asks if this is really the servant's contract. Now Kai understands what a Demon Warrior is. Griselda turns to the master, asks him to give her the strength to protect the family of demons, that is, to give her the class of a Heavenly King, and swears allegiance to him. Kai looks at her and thinks that this is the same Griselda who could become the Demon King herself. He believes that a lot can be expected from her. Looking intensely at his hand, Kai realizes that he never thought that the day would come when he would make a servant pact with the Demon King. Kai accepts Griselda's request and gives her the class of Heavenly King. A seal also appears above Griselda's head. Suddenly, a huge splash of bloody magic appears above the rooftops. Sasha and Kai look up in confusion. Red flames burn around Griselda, and she feels strength filling her. She is silent. Sasha timidly calls out to her. Griselda was delighted that part of Mr. Kai's power was now in her. She is happy that she has become a Heavenly King that Kai will be proud of. With a helpless smile, Kai looks at her and wants to ask something, but stops mid-sentence. Sasha congratulates Griselda. The latter nods. With her hands folded across her chest, she says that they have become subjects of the master who defeated the hero. Sasha understands that now she will also be needed. Griselda rushes into Sasha's arms and says that she has also become stronger and that they will now create a new world together with Mr. Kai. Looking at this, Kai thinks, he defeated Ares and gained the companions of the Demon King. He has already changed fate. But the problems still haven't gone away. He turns around sharply. Knights in armor are heading towards them, and a familiar voice is heard from there. The father pulls the sword out of its sheath and demands an explanation from his stupid son. His face was twisted with rage and fury. Kai's father is a celestial divine knight and his name is Geese. Taking a fighting stance, he asks how Ares could lose, why Kai is with the demons, and demands an answer from his eldest son. Kai shielded Griselda with his hand. She noticed the confident stance of the knight and asked Kai who she was. He said that this is the leader of the Holy Knights, and also his father, whose face expresses anger. The buildings are partially destroyed. The knights examine Ares, and one of them says that he is breathing. Geese says that Kai didn't even show up for the class ceremony and asks him what he was doing. There are other knights standing in rows behind him. With a smile, Kai tells his father that he is a dark magician. Geese just gasped in shock. He asked, wasn't Kai supposed to be a hero? With a disdainful laugh, Kai showed off the mark and declared that he would now become the Demon King. Geese's eyes widened in horror. Confusedly pointing his finger, he says that this is a dark mark and asks again if Kai really is a dark magician. He then calls his son a fool for deciding to become the Demon King. In despair, Jis asks if Kai has lost the pride of the Austin family, his sense of justice. Kai clenched his fists. He said that he had already seen enough of his father's so-called justice in childhood, namely torture and threats. Jis hid the birth of the Demon King, and then also expelled his own son, after which he ordered his death. Kai tells his father that all that matters is his ego, and then states that if this is justice, then he doesn't mind becoming evil. Jis looks at Kai angrily and tells him not to think that he will live as before with such a class. Father and son stand opposite each other. Kai asks Geese not to worry and explains this by saying that he is no longer part of the Austin family. Snapping his fingers, Kai says he is banishing him. From behind the knights, flames flew into the sky. Geese turned around sharply. The houses were burning. Jais can't understand what's going on. He hears screams that things are bad. The flames are spreading from house to house. It's burning everywhere. People took to the streets. There is a cry that the barn is also on fire and that everyone should run quickly. Looking at Kai, Jis asked him what he had done. Grisla quietly asked her master when he had time to prepare for this. Katz replies that he did all this while he was looking for her and tried to do everything so that no one died. A crimson mist flows from a pentagram located on the floor. A notification arrives. The system congratulates the main character for setting fire to his parents' house, calls it an excellent crime, and gives him 500 points. With a smile, Kai looks at the system windows and thinks that he is lucky. This system is very suitable for revenge. He wants to take some skill. The choice fell on intensifying the darkness. Jis looks furiously at Kai and chokes with his indignation. Kai boldly looks at his father and says that Austin should disappear. He explains that this is his justice. The father roared in rage. He ordered the knights to kill Kai and said that he was no longer his son. Several people with spears rushed towards Kai, but dark magic turned out to be faster. Kai killed everyone with one spell. Then he told them to get some sleep. His father rushed at him in a rage. He shouts that Kai should not think that he will get away with all this. He adds that these knights were like pawns to him. However, Kai already knows this. He summons his sword Dilfing. A demon sword appears in Kai's hands. Father and son cross their swords in a duel. Guys recognize Kai's sword. The main character, gritting his teeth, confronts his father. He fought him off, and Jis did not even immediately understand what had happened. He stumbled back and Kai raised his sword to attack. Immediately he slashed downwards with it. Jis's hand holding the sword flew limply to the side. Jais looks at it. Then he starts screaming. Jis sat down next to the soldier, who tried in every possible way to calm him down. Guys can't believe it's a demon sword. He, breathing heavily, asks if Kai has really decided to stop being human. However, this will not take Guys. He uses the Heavenly Knight's special restoration magic, Nightly Restoration. Golden light streams from behind him. Jis believes that he will restore one arm in an instant. However, he immediately realizes with horror that she is not recovering. Kai said boredly that Geese had finally noticed everything. He cast magic on him that blocks any restoration magic. He cast it before cutting off his father's hand using the highest curse magic at level 850. Kai tells his father that even the Holy Maiden will not restore him. He states that he stopped the bleeding, so let Geese accept this as a debt to his father. Guys clutches his severed hand. He shouts that Kai just got a grade and he doesn't understand how he already achieved such mastery. The sword of Guys lies limp on the ground. Kai says that a warrior who has lost his dominant arm is the same as a corpse. Looking down on his father, Kai boldly declares that his justice has no power anymore. Guys looks at his son angrily. Memories from her first life flash before Kai. Closing his eyes, the main character says that Geese killed him. Geese says that he doesn't understand what Kai is talking about at all. A notification arrives. The system congratulates Kai for turning his own father into a disabled person and receiving 500 points. Suddenly Jis sees Ares lying unconscious. His lips curl into a strange, determined smile. He says that everything is clear to him now and looks forward with dignity. Ares lies on the ground with a ridiculous expression on his face. Geese says that since it was not Kai, then Ares became a hero. There are corpses on the side of the main character, and knights stand behind his father. Guys says with confidence that this means Ares has become a hero, and the predictions of Saint Jonah are always true. Kai only remains silent in response. Jis, laughing, ordered to cast restoration magic on Ares and defeat the dark magician along with the hero. The knight, trembling, wants to object to him and points to Ares' hand. Guys turns around sharply and sees everything. There is shock and disgust on his face. He asks loudly if Ares has also received the dark magician class. Guys exclaims that this simply cannot happen, because Ion's predictions must necessarily come true. Kai calmly looks at him and notes to himself that what his father said is true. Jonah was not mistaken in his prediction. Ares truly became a hero. Kai simply blocked his mark of light with a mark of darkness. Jonah is the main danger to the protagonist's plan. Kai is confident of this since Jonah was from the hero's team and his unique divination skill accurately predicts the future 7 days. Kai decides that he needs to get rid of Ion as soon as possible. Guys slumped his shoulders. Kai asks his father if he really wants to expel Ares. Since he now has both heirs of the dark class, this means that the pride of the Austin family is over. Guys growled in fury. In despair, he, looking at the ground, roars that this is a nightmare and asks what will happen to the pride of the Austin family. The knight standing nearby carefully asks what to do with Ares, whether he needs to be treated. Guys decisively replies that no, says that Ares is only fit for the trash heap and calls his youngest son a dirty spot. He shouts that their family does not need anyone from the dark class and orders Ares to be expelled. Kai grins. To himself, he calls his father a fool, because before him lies a hero, and now Ares will lose his status as an aristocrat. Kai has fulfilled his goal, now he has nothing more to do here. He told his father that he would go. Looking at his son's back, just asks if Kai, his son, is going to side with the demons. Kai decisively replies that he does and says that at least demons can be trusted. The images of Urza and Ion from his past life appear before him. Kai thinks he can only trust Colette. He approaches Griselda and Sasha and invites them to go. The girls look at Kai approvingly, and he looks at them and thinks that demons have a pure heart. For a protagonist who understands the vileness of people, the demon's heart is too innocent. He remembers their tears, and sadness appears in his eyes. Just still looks after his son in shock. Kai says goodbye to him. Sasha, Griselda, and Kai, the three of them, walk out the gate and the guard asks what happened inside. Kai asks the guard to tell him that he should not be accompanied. The guard will carry out this order. With a terrible expression on his face, Kai adds that he will kill everyone who pursues him. The guard recoiled. Kai thanked him. Houses are burning. The guard calls out to Kai, but he has already disappeared, using dark magic to instantly move. The guard says in confusion that Kai has already disappeared. The trio found themselves in a sunny forest near a lake. The girls are surprised. With a smile, Kai calls them on their way. The burning houses were left behind. Looking back at them, Sasha says that this is convenient magic since they are already so far away. Griselda smiles and tells Kai that he showed the place to his father and calls him well done. Kai grins and thanks her. With enthusiasm, Griselda suggests going further into demon territory. Kai agrees and says that they need to hurry, but first they need to get to Lacus village and Colette. Then an idea comes into his head. He wants to strengthen the girls just in case. Griselda asks in surprise, will they really become even stronger? Kai extends his hand forward. He says that he gives Griselda and Sasha an increase in dark magic of the 10th level. The boost is starting to take effect. Griselda exclaims that it was as if something warm had passed through her. Holding her chest, Sasha says that this is too much for her. Colette winces a little. Kai says to himself that one of the abilities of the subject's contract is the ability to give the subject any of his skills. He himself does not lose it, so he rather shares it more than gives it away. Sasha closed her eyes. Both were exhausted. Kai scratches his head and asks for forgiveness. Griselda says it's nothing. Sasha thanks Kai. The girls are breathing heavily. Kai suggests they take a break. The three of them are sitting on logs. Kai tells them something with a laugh. Colette sits tired, and Sasha listens carefully to Kai. The main character believes that Colette is safe and puts his hand under her clothes. He takes out her bracelet. Holding it in his hand, he thinks to himself that Colette gave it as a talisman during her first life. Even though the bracelet was broken, strong magical energy still emanates from it. Then an idea came to Kai's head. He acquires the skill evaluating items for 500 points. Kai then uses it on the bracelet. Evaluation in progress. The system produces the following. A bracelet of time is a bracelet, inside of which there is a prayer for a second meeting with the beloved and in which there was the magical power of the Holy Maiden of Time, as well as the magical power of the owner. Thanks to this bracelet increases by 5%. Then Kai understands everything. He thought so, and now he is absolutely sure that it was with this bracelet that he was able to be reborn. The separation from Colette in his past life flashes before his eyes. Closing his eyes and squeezing the bracelet in his hand, Kai said to himself that he destroyed the Austin family, that he separated them, and now he can change the future. He thinks that now he and Colette will be happy together. Then he is struck by another guess. Does Colette really have a hidden class too? Why is she not just a holy virgin, but a holy virgin of time? He comes to the conclusion that he needs to meet her as soon as possible. Griselda asks him what happened. Kai shrugs it off as nothing. He says it's time to go. Griselda happily follows along with Sasha. Kai's face is serious and determined. He asks Colette to wait for him. Temple. A single lamp illuminates a white-robed man kneeling in front of another bespectacled man. The latter releases him, and the servant carries out the order. With an evil smile, the bespectacled man, Jonah, says that he has finally found her, the Holy Maiden of Time. Night. Village. A tied-up villager is kneeling in front of the temple servants. One attendant brought a sword to his face, and the man trembled. The servants report to Jonah that they have found out the approximate location of Saint Colette. The tied-up residents look at Ion angrily, and he tells them that there is no point in interrogating them anymore. Holding a book in his hand, Jonah thanks people for their help, but this gratitude is insincere. Jonah orders the people's memories to be erased and released. One guy is glad that they will be released, another man asks if their memory will really be erased. Angrily, he shouts that the servants should not cast such dangerous magic on people because according to rumors, it can make you go crazy. Adjusting his glasses, Jonah called the man selfish and said he would do him a favor. Jonah orders his death. There is horror on the man's face. Jonah turns to the other connected people and asks if there are others among them who are also against the magic of oblivion. Everyone is silent. Jonah, with a hypocritical smile, says that, thank God, there was only one. A terrible scream was heard and the man was killed. Colette rushes through the forest. The servants are chasing her. Colette is breathing heavily. Stretching his hand upward, Jonah thinks that the Pope's prayer will definitely reach the saint and wishes her salvation. However, he immediately clarifies that he wants salvation for himself. Jonah muses that no matter whether he becomes a hero or a demon king, he simply needs a second life, and only the Holy Maiden of Time can grant his wish. Jonah is confident that his prediction skill will prevent her from escaping. Colette is the daughter of the Marquis of Valmez, and Jonah knows it. Colette tries to break away from the chase. Jonah looks after her. One of the attendants asks why Jonah is letting her escape. The latter notes that her behavior is strange and suggests that she mistook them for bandits due to the darkness. The thought flashes through his head that Colette could sense something with her skill, but he immediately dismisses it. Colette is stumped. The archdemon looks anxiously into the distance. Church servants slowly approach them. The archdemon blames himself for not noticing them in time. Colette is approached from the side. She reassures herself that nothing bad is happening and assures herself that she can talk to these people. Jonah approaches her with an unkind smile on his face. Having bowed, he addresses Colette as mistress and expresses his joy at meeting her. His look does not bode well. Colette boldly looks at Ion, and he notices something about her and cannot believe his eyes. He sees the mark on her hand. This completely convinces him that Colette is the Holy Virgin of the times. Colette asks what the purpose of her pursuers was to make such a fuss. Jonah politely says that they came for her. He says that he learned about the emergence of a new demon king thanks to a prophecy, and everyone would like Colette to put up a holy barrier around the holy capital. Colette wants to refuse, but Jonah interrupts her and says that it is her responsibility. Colette clenches her fist. She then solemnly announces that there is nothing to fear anymore because a true hero named Kai prevented the birth of the demon king. The smile disappeared from Ion's face. Colette asked if he didn't predict that today a demon king would be born and kill half the country's population. She concludes that if all this did not happen, then Kai must have already figured it all out. Jonah, exhaling in shock, asked how Colette knew about his prediction. Colette says that Kai told her everything. She, expressing uncertainty that Jonah will believe her words, says that Kai came from the future and saved a lot of people today. Colette calls Kai a true hero. Jonah paused. Then he asked with a laugh what was going on and realized that there was already someone who was living a second life. Jonah wonders if this same Kai is the son of the Austen family. Colette answers positively. Jonah tells her that, unfortunately, her lover almost killed his own brother with the power of darkness, and also went against his own family, set fire to his parents' house and ran away. Colette is sure that this cannot happen. Jonah accuses her of lying and loudly declares that his predictions are always correct. With an evil smile, he says that Kai Austen is an evil demon king, but he did not expect Colette to be on his side. He raises his hand. Colette was confused, and Jonah, pointing his finger at her, ordered her to be tied up. The servants rushed at the girl. Ion has a malicious smile on his face, but he understands to himself that Kai Austen, living a second life, poses a terrible danger and makes the assumption that he has a special relationship with Colette. Pressed against the wall, Colette asks the attendants surrounding her to stop. Jonah thinks that if they take her hostage, then Kai will not raise a hand against them, and if everything goes like clockwork, then some information can be extracted from him. Jonah is sure that everything will work out for him, because after all, the Holy Virgin of Time is the key to the second life. He believes that the day is near when he will rule the world. Suddenly, a huge archdemon appears from behind Colette. He roars wildly, his eyes glowing red. The servants stared at this monster in stupor, their faces twisted with fear. All self-confidence fled from Ion too. The archdemon waved his clawed paw. One servant managed to duck, the second was thrown back. The servants retreat and call Jonah. The archdemon stands behind Colette, fire blazing in his paw. Coming forward, Colette said that she thought she would be able to talk to them, but it seemed that everything turned out as Kai told her. Jonah cannot believe that the archdemon is in front of him and recoils in horror. Colette reveals that Jonah is to blame for the corruption of the church and tells him to repent of his sins. Out of fear, Jonah hiccuped and sank to the ground. He asked for forgiveness and promised that everything would be as Colette said. Smoke streams from the archdemon's mouth. He said that if Jonah thought of running away with such a lie, he would make sure his mouth spoke no more. Colette is stopped by the archdemon. She touches it and looks forward. Bowing before her, Jonah says that the Emperor forced him. He himself did not want to do this. Jonah says that if the Demon King had not been born, then he would not have even thought about chasing Colette. Colette asks if this is true. Jonah swears to God that he does, but his face says otherwise. However, Colette believes him. She orders everyone to drop their weapons and surrender. Jonah agrees, but says he has one request. He inquires if there are any casualties from the demon's attack and looks at the servant wounded in the stomach, who is supported by a comrade. Colette rushes to him and sympathetically says that the wounded man needs to be healed as soon as possible, but Jonah stops her. He says it was his fault, so he has to figure it out himself. The archdemon looks at him warily. Colette lets Jonah figure it out for himself. He pulls out a bottle. He says that this is a restoration potion and puts it to the lips of the wounded man. He drinks. Jonah tells the wounded man not to rush. With an evil smile, Jonah says that the potion is delicious and very sweet. Then, laughing loudly, he calls Colette too gullible and breaks the bottle in his hands. The wounded man is breathing heavily. Colette realizes she did something wrong. Raising his fist, the archdemon shouted that Jonah was planning something after all. The wounded man screams that he is about to explode. The potion begins to work. Colette looks at what is happening in horror. The wounded man becomes much larger and stronger and intercepts the archdemon's raised paw with his palm. Jonah shouts that it's a level booster and asks what Colette thinks about level 800. The former wounded man with a face disfigured by the potion screams that a miracle has happened and feels that now he can resist the archdemon. The archdemon notes that Ion still had an ace up his sleeve. However, it is not that simple. The archdemon raises his second fist, with crimson fog swirling around it. Jonah tells Colette with an evil laugh that she's caught. The girl stumbles back in horror. Opening his book, Jonah says that he will now make sure that Colette does not run away. A golden glow appears in his hand. Jonah uses light magic to launch a holy arrow. The archdemon looks down in horror. Jonah has an evil smile on his face. The arrow flies into Colette's neck. She shields herself from her with her hand. With a nasty smile, Jonah continues to shoot. With a cry, the archdemon rushed and blocked the girl with himself. The arrow hit him. Colette looks at what happened with horror and becomes desperate. The archdemon roars in pain, blood spraying from its mouth. The servants look at the wounded demon in a cold sweat. Adjusting his glasses, Jonah was once again amazed at Colette's gullibility. He then said that he didn't think the tall demon would stoop to act like a loyal mongrel. He calls his knights to action. Golden circles appear underneath them. The black-haired knight says that this is all for the sake of justice, but he is not entirely sure about this. And yet he, along with the others, rushes to the attack. Jonah chuckles to himself, because light is effective against darkness. The servants shower the archdemon with a hail of blows, and he falls to his knees. His eyes are wide open in pain. Jonah thinks that for an archdemon who has the darkness attribute, such an attack might be too strong. Colette shouts that this is vile and is indignant at how after this Jonah dares to call himself a saint. Colette considers this a shame. Jonah retorts with a grin that since he was appointed to the position of saint, that means he is justice. The archdemon looked at him angrily and called him a little man. Then he collapsed to the ground. Turning to Colette, he asked her to save herself. A powerful attack of light rains down on him. His body is smoldering, and Colette looks on with confusion and despair. She can't believe what happened. The former wounded man, who was given a level booster, stands in a fighting stance and says that he defeated the archdemon, but stops mid-sentence. The veins on his face are bulging. Then blood sprays out from his vessels, ears, mouth and eyes in all directions. He knelt down and screamed in pain. With tears in his eyes, he begs Ion to restore him, but he looks coldly ahead. Looking at the suffering man with disgust, Jonah tells him not to approach and calls him an abomination. The wounded man cannot believe his ears. Colette takes his hand. She looks him firmly in the eyes. Activating the spell, she tells him that he will not leave him and will heal him now. The wounded man looks at her, touched. Trembling, he says that this is very nice of the Holy Virgin. The wounded man repents of what he did. Colette tries to heal him. He wants to apologize, but suddenly a lot of blood sprays out of his mouth. It lands on Colette's face. The wounded man died. Colette helplessly bent over him. Sighing, Jonah said that it was not nice, that things were bad and that he needed to change his clothes. Colette asked lifelessly if Jonah knew this would happen. Jonah casually replied that yes, because he used a magic enhancement potion in exchange for strength. Tears flow down Colette's cheeks. Bending helplessly over the deceased, Colette said that Jonah called Kai the king of demons. Then she shouted that it was Jonah who was the enemy of the people, the demon. Closing the book, Jonah said he was sorry. He said he thought she would like it and patted her on the back. Colette continues to cry. Standing up, Jonah announced that there was an emergency. Colette was being protected by a demon, a subject of the Demon King, who had certainly brainwashed her. Colette screams in disbelief. Jonah looks at her with a sly, evil smile. He puts a holy chain on her. Colette demands that it stop and tries to break free, but to no avail. Jonah orders Colette to listen to him and tells her that Kai is a common enemy and he forbids her to contact him. Colette screams in despair. Jonah says that if she goes against it, the chains will squeeze her even tighter. Bent over, Colette said that Kai could not be an enemy. Jonah concluded out loud that Colette loved Kai and ironically called it wonderful feelings. There is despair on Colette's face. Jonah asks how long her feelings will last if they become only pain for her, and then laughs disgustingly. Colette cries and silently calls out to Kai. Behind Ion stands a black-haired knight who is alarmed about something. He directly tells Jonah that this was too much because Colette was merciful to them. Jonah looked at him angrily. An arrow pierced the black-haired knight's forehead. He collapsed to the ground. Shaking his finger instructively, Jonah called the knight a heretic. Then he grinned disgustingly again. Colette has a look of horror on her face. She says that this is too much, but God sees everything, and he will punish Jonah. The latter grins loudly in response. With his arms outstretched, he shouts that it was God who made him a saint, that he is justice, but Colette must bear the punishment. The girl closes her eyes and asks Kai for forgiveness. Jonah grinned with satisfaction. He says that if it is used, then the Demon King who lives a second life will not be a hindrance. For him, the fun has already begun. Jonah wonders if Kai made it to the village unharmed. Meanwhile, Kai stands on a high hill, his face calm and serious. Holding branches in his hands, he looked into the distance at the village visible ahead and mentally called out to his beloved. A small house with lights burning in its windows. Kai announced that he was back. The soup is boiling in the cauldron. Griselda happily reports that they have prepared dinner. Sasha pours soup into bowls. Everything looks delicious to Griselda. Entering the house, Kai agreed with Griselda and said that from frequent use of instant movement his stomach was already empty, and he could not wait to taste the food. Suddenly his face contorted in pain. Kai dropped the branches, his hand trembled and became enveloped in crimson. The branches hit the floor, and Griselda turned to the main character in alarm. Kai looks at his hand in horror and realizes that the magical power that he was given by the archdemon has returned to him. Then he realizes that the archdemon is defeated. Sweat flows from his cheek. Kai mentally calls out to the archdemon. He listens. Kai asks him what happened to Colette. The archdemon asks for forgiveness and reports that Mrs. Colette has been kidnapped. Kai's face looks like ice was poured into his stomach. It's night. A hare is standing near their house. Griselda enthusiastically says that Mr. Kai hunts very skillfully and managed to quickly get them food. Sasha, holding a plate and ladle in his hands, believes that Kai traveled alone for a long time. Griselda already understands this. Pointing her fingers at the hare, she said that Kai was well versed in the habits of hares. A moment flashes in her head when she and Kai were sitting in ambush, and he wanted to tell her something. With affection, she says that Kai quickly caught the forest hare and surprised her. Sasha, while scooping up the soup, wanted to say that Griselda was too happy when she talked about Kai, but she stopped short. Griselda stopped short. Laughing, Sasha says that it's nothing, and Griselda wants her to continue her thought. The sticks fall to the floor from Kai's hands with a resounding thud. Both girls turn to him in alarm. Trying to remain calm, Kai says that Colette has been kidnapped. Both girls were confused. Sasha asked what happened. Kai, clenching his fists, answered her that the archdemon, who protected Colette, had been defeated. Griselda exclaimed that the archdemon is the highest demon, and if an entire army attacks him, he will not lose to anyone. Then Kai realizes one more thing, and the pupils of his eyes narrow in horror. He understands that if the archdemon is defeated, he cannot be summoned for another 24 hours, which means Colette is now alone. The power of the archdemon glows in his palm. He, being somewhere inside Kai, says that he is very sorry. Kai asks the archdemon what this means. The last one says the name, Saint Jonah. He then reveals that he was attacked by the Holy Knights, led by Jonah. Kai screams in his thoughts why Colette needs Jonah. The archdemon adds that Jonah realized that Kai had been reborn. Kai's eyes widened. He understood that Jonah knew about this, but did not understand how. Then he called himself a fool and remembered that Jonah has the skill of prediction. Kai is at a loss. Was Jonah really paying attention to Colette in a past life? Then why does he need her? To go back in time. Kai wants to suggest something else, but then the voice of the archdemon bursts into his head, who says that Jonah found out that Kai is the king of demons, bound Colette with holy chains and became more hostile against him. Cold sweat is dripping from Kai's face, a look of horror on his face. He imagined Colette's torment. Holy chains are slave magic, and Kai knows it. Turning to the door, he ordered the archdemon to rest. He obeyed the order. Kai is silent. Colette approached, touching Kai by the hand, and asked if he was okay. She said Kai's face was blue. The main character is trembling. He angrily says to himself that he will not forgive Jonah, will put an end to him, the church, and will also show them a hell worse than death. He promises himself this. Colette clutched the fireball in her hand. Then she hit Kai with force in the back, who did not expect this at all. Turning around, he asked Griselda what she was doing. With a satisfied smile, Griselda asks if Kai is in pain and states that she is strong. Kai's back is on fire, and he still doesn't understand anything. Sasha stood behind Griselda, who, putting her hands on her hips and sighing, said that Kai was putting too much on himself. Griselda asked him not to forget that she and Sasha are his dear partners and will always be with him. She firmly told him that they would save Colette together. Kai looks at her with confusion. He remembers that in his first life everyone was his enemy, the warriors of the Demon King, Griselda, his partners, a team of heroes, and even his family. He bit his lip. Now everything is clear to him. Smiling wryly and ruffling his hair, Kai thanked Griselda. Two girls smile and say something to him. Kai asks himself, does he really have friends? Then he furrowed his eyebrows decisively. All three are standing at the table. Kai explains to them that this time they face a large barrier around the capital, preventing the entry of those who decide to enter without permission. He said that they could not break him by force. Kai added that even Griselda in her first life, being a demon lord, could not break him. Griselda looks at Kai confused and asks if this is true. Then she wants to ask what they should do then. Kai confidently says that they will send a traitor to the capital. Both girls were a little confused, and Griselda asked Kai about this. She began to explain that the barrier is strengthened thanks to the holy artifacts located inside it, and if they are destroyed from the inside, the barber will be weakened. Sasha, looking blankly at the point in front of him, asks if there is anyone who is ready to help them. Kai simply smiled. Griselda perked up and asked if Kai had an idea. Closing his eyes, Kai answered in the affirmative, but further said that it would be difficult for the three of us to break the barrier. Then he turned to Griselda. He told her to conquer the territory. Griselda, perked up, asked if they could really deal with Colette later. Kai replied that he would not like to postpone this matter because he wanted to save her. In this case, Griselda offered to save her. Kai thought to himself that Jonah had made the biggest mistake in his life, namely, he had allowed an even more ferocious demon king than Griselda to appear. Let him be ready. A light flashed through the window from the street. A dagger immediately flew past Kai's face. It hit the wall. With an annoyed face, Kai asked himself if the chase had already begun. A man in white robes entered the house through the window. His eyes glow red from under his hood. He asks Kai if he is the Demon King Kai Austin. More similar people appeared from the darkness and called themselves Swords of the Church, Purifiers. With one voice they call on Kai to repent for her sins and die. They rush to attack. Griselda is indignant about what they are doing. Dodging the blow, Kai shouted that this was the wrong side of the church, which was killing people they didn't need in the shadows. One purifier jumped high and threw 4 daggers at Kai at once. They fly into Kai's face. Sasha repels the attack with a plate. Griselda smiles and realizes that these people are from the church and comes to Kai's defense. He turns sharply to her. She kicks one of the cleaners, and he flies out into the street and loses consciousness. His partner looks at him questioningly. Kai, Sasha, and Griselda, the three of them, are standing on the street, surrounded on all sides. Griselda says that these purifiers may not be many, but Kai is not alone. He and Sasha can fight too. Playing with a magical blood clot in her hands, Griselda is eager to fight. A crimson flame flutters above Kai's hand. Once, in his first life, he had already fought with purifiers. They are the elite units of the Holy Church, and he had to work hard to defeat them. The purifiers rush to attack. However, now Kai has become many times stronger. He casts the Black Bolt spell. The ground splits into crimson cracks, and the purifiers are thrown aside. Looking ahead, Kai mentally reminded himself that he was not fighting alone now. Sasha throws plates at enemies. She gives them a storm of plates. They crash into the purifiers, hit them, and they fly back. One purifier said with fear that Sasha, Griselda, and Kai were strong. Blood flows from Griselda's fingers, which then shoots up. Cunningly sticking out her tongue and extending her hand, Griselda casts the Bloody Whip spell. The whip hits all the purifiers in the face, and they fly apart. Rolling it up, Griselda asks if this is all and what should they expect next. One of the purifiers spits blood. He cannot move his limbs. While fighting against the other purifiers, Kai tells Griselda not to get distracted and yells at her that the purifiers are just forest hares. Griselda echoes the last 2 words. Here she understands everything. She remembered how she and Kai sat in ambush while hunting hares. The main character then told her that in order to catch a hare, you need to be able to hide well. Then he invites her to look behind the tree, from where the white ears of a hare can be seen. Kai laughed. Everything went as he said. Griselda was delighted. Indeed, there was a hare. Having replayed this moment in her head, Griselda smiled predatorily. She began to stand motionless, lowering her whip, and look at the sky. The purifiers look at her from the bushes and wonder if she has run out of energy or is just tired. Someone said to call for reinforcements for a surprise attack. Griselda breathes deeply. She's focused. She chanted the Bloody Cross spell to herself. The purifiers ran out of cover and rushed to attack her. Bloody growths formed in the ground. They were noticed, but too late. The growths rushed upward and pierced through all the attackers. Blood sprayed from the mouth of one of them. Griselda looks up at the hanging corpses. She is happy with her job. Sasha, appearing behind her, says that Mrs. Griselda is excellent. Showing the mark on her hand, she said that this was all thanks to the contract of the fourth Heavenly King. Smiling and showing her hand, Sasha says that she also feels in every possible way better than before. All purifiers have been killed and the battlefield has fallen silent. Kai, looking at them, says that although the contract affects their strength, he still underestimated the true potential of the girls. Sasha, having brought one of the purifiers to Kai, reported that he had been captured and asked for further instructions. With a smile, Kai proposed to arrange negotiations. Turning to the trembling purifier, Kai says that he was actually waiting for his pursuer, but he never thought that he would catch him so quickly. The main character orders the purifier to sign a demon servant contract with him, the Demon King. Griselda remembered how they made the contract. She, rushing to him, asked incomprehensibly why Kai was entering into such an agreement with a mere mortal. Kai gently pushes her away with his hand. He then turns to the man and tells him that he has no right to refuse. He furiously replies that Kai is stupid if he expects him to renounce the holy teachings and submit to the King of Demons. In response to this, Kai tells Griselda to give the man vampire powers and turn him into an undead. The purifier trembled even more in horror. He asked if they really wanted to turn him into an immortal monster. He imagines what it will look like. The purifier begs for mercy and agrees to everything because he doesn't want to become something so disgusting. Kai asks the purifier's name. The man takes a deep breath. He then introduces himself as Mateo. How he asks him if he understands that betrayal will be punishable by death. Mateo asks for the opportunity to conclude a contract. Kai allows it. He assigns Mateo the Demon Squad Leader class. A pentagram glows above Mateo's head. He feels empowered and looks a little confused at his hands. Griselda, looking at this, loudly asked Kai why he entered into a contract with a person, and especially with an enemy. Smiling at her, Kai said that Mateo would be their spy. He will return back to the church as a spy. Sharply approaching Kai, Griselda enthusiastically asks how Kai came up with this. Meanwhile, Kai turns to Mateo, not even a hint of a smile on his face. Mateo is on his knees and looks up at Kai and Griselda. The main character asks him to convey the following words to Ion. The Demon Lord has an object that is the key to a second life. He and his henchmen went south. Mateo tries to remember the words and says he will carry out the order. Kai, holding his chest, says that he needs more spies. He says that if Jonah finds out his location, he will immediately send reinforcements there. Kai says that he is going to take revenge on him and use the demon servant contract to infiltrate there. Looking at his dark magician mark, Kai thinks to himself that if Jonah appears in person, the conversation will be short. And when the time comes, their spies will destroy the barrier. Griselda looks at him in shock. Sasha says that she has never seen anyone more inventive than Mr. Kai. She sees him as the most powerful demon lord who manages to combine wisdom and courage. With a smile, Kai says that she is exaggerating. The system beeps. She congratulates Kai for turning the purifier into a spy and gives him 300 points. With a smile, Kai realizes that he has committed a bad deed. He thinks to himself that if he tries, he cannot limit himself to just spies, that for the sake of the future he might be able to gather an army. Kai will do all this for the sake of Colette's speedy rescue. Here everyone is sitting on the ground, some kind of creature. Sasha calls Kai and he asks what happened. There is a ram-like creature lying on the ground, bleeding. Sasha shouts that he belongs to the demonic race and that he is injured. Approaching, Griselda asks him what happened. She shouts that he needs to be healed quickly. The creature begins to speak faintly. Trembling, he said that the demon territory had been captured and called on everyone to flee and mentioned some woman. Then his head falls limply to the ground. Leaning over him, Griselda shouts that she doesn't understand what he's talking about. Kai asks about the woman. The creature says one name, Urza. Sunset over a mountain village. Kai and Sasha are standing near the house and Griselda is squatting down and looking at something in the grass. Kai says that they are almost ready to attack, but the sun is already setting and suggests stopping at this village, having dinner here and resting. Sasha agrees. In his mind, Kai asks that Colette be okay and promises her that they will definitely save her. Squatting down, Griselda watches the blue butterfly. She says out loud the name of her beloved Kai. She then says that they need to get this over with quickly. The ram, standing with dignity, addresses Mrs. Griselda, Mr. Kai and Mrs. Sasha. With a smile, he thanks them for saving him. Griselda says that saving him was a given. Then, turning her attention away from the butterfly and looking at the ram, she declares that she will not allow members of the demonic race to die right in front of her eyes. The ram bowed. Griselda wants to add something else to him. She says that until they return the demonic lands, the ram will have to go into hiding. He thought and frowned. He further said that their lands are currently in a terrible state under the control of Urza and her associates. Baron says that they are all incredibly cunning and cannot be stopped. Griselda asks him to be careful. Kai notes to himself that Urza and her associates will be stronger than Ares. He offers to collect information on them. Beer house. Drunken screams and laughter are heard outside her door. Someone declares that he will put down these demons with one hand. Kai sits at the table and looks intensely at his glass. Griselda took her glass in her hands but did not touch the drink. Someone shouts for everyone to take as much as they can carry. The man with the beard said with a grin that they were doing well. His neighbor is happy about it too. Kai tensed. The bald neighbor says that it looks like Urza will get the title. Kai's name hurts your ears. A man with a beard, raising a mug to his lips, says contentedly that now they are serving an aristocrat, and that's great. Griselda clenched her teeth in anger. Kai calms her down. The tavern is dirty, bottles and dishes are scattered everywhere, all the tables are occupied. Closing his eyes, Kai says that there is no need to worry because Urza will not be happy about this for long, since the three of them will soon break her. Griselda hesitantly agrees. Kai thinks it would be good to know more about Urza and her companions. Even from small fry it would be nice for him to learn at least a little information. The waiter served a dish, an omelet. Griselda's mouth watered and her eyes sparkled with happiness. With a smile, Kai thought that Griselda had brightened the situation. Sasha pours wine for Kai, who thanks her. The man with the beard turns around and concludes that the trio are aristocrats. Both men smile unkindly and disgustingly. Looking at the cutouts on the girls' chests, Kai notices that they need to look for new clothes, because these clothes are a little bit too eye-catching. Approaching, the man calls Sasha his elder sister and ingratiatingly asks her to splash him. Sasha was confused, but immediately answered directly that she was refusing. Holding the bottle in his hands, the man says that this party is in honor of Urza, but the company with Sasha attracts him more than a bunch of aristocrats. Kai thought to himself that it was good that he came up to fight. With a happily glowing face, Griselda wishes you bon appetit and wants to start eating an omelet. The man roughly kicks the table and says that you need to listen to him. Everything falls to the floor. Griselda froze with her spoon and fork raised. The men watched this scene with a grin. Other people in the tavern were outraged by this action. The omelet smeared on the floor. Griselda turns to the man with tears in her eyes. The man, smiling disgustingly, notices that Griselda is a vampire and asks if she is a slave. Sasha shields Griselda and glares at the man, who notes that the girls are well trained and asks if she wants to fight. Kai realizes it's time to intervene. Standing in front of the man, he told him to calm down. The man, seeing the mark on Kai's hand, just grinned. He shouted to the whole tavern that Kai was a brave guy and said that he was a black magician. With a terrible expression on his face, the man said that he hated the black magic class and asked if it would be better if he killed him. Kai demands that the man pay for the omelet. He was taken aback. He then stood in front of Kai at full height. He shows off his dragon joints and says that since Kai doesn't run at the sight of them, then he really isn't a coward. Kai looks at the man from under his brows. He notes to himself that the man has the class of a warrior and that he is quite confident in himself. Kai voices out loud that there is something he wants to ask. The man replies that he does not want this and says that his job is simple and it is to kill people like Kai. Ordering the others to take care of the girls, the man rushed at Kai. Urza's companions smile evilly. Other people are horrified. The man in the hood and glasses also looks at this scene with horror. Kai calmly watches the attack. Rubbing his fist and smiling contentedly, the man looks at his work. There was nothing left of Kai, and the man said that he had underestimated his enemy. Next, he wants to go after the girls, but his body is pierced by an attack, and blood sprays from his mouth. Smoke flows from Kai's hand. The man falls to his knees. Then, with a lifeless face, he collapsed to the floor. Rubbing his fist, Kai notices that he went a little overboard. People look at him with surprise and joy. Griselda screams that Kai just killed him. Other men, crossing themselves, say that a black magician cannot defeat a warrior. Kai notes to himself that these are also Urza's subordinates. He then states that he is level 999. The men accuse Kai of lying. The main character says that the defeated man's power level was above average. Then, with a terrible expression on his face, he demands that they tell about Urza. Trembling with fear, the man asks why about her. Playing with black magic in his hands, Kai says that he does not want to disturb the others in the tavern and invites the men to follow him. He says that black magicians have many magical spells for torture. The men agree to tell everything. There is fear on their faces. They left. Kai stands with his arms folded and says that he has understood a lot. He further demands that they tell what good state of affairs they were talking about and asks if their money was not earned by using demons as slaves. The men looked at each other. With a satisfied face, Kai walked back into the tavern. Then he showed a huge bag of money and announced that today he was treating everyone. People shouted joyfully. Griselda admired Kai's generosity and said that this money used to belong to Urza's associates. Sasha says with confusion that this money could have been used for other purposes. Kai says that's enough. If Urza finds out what happened here, she'll be more careful. He says that's why he cast oblivion magic on them, which works better when a person is drunk. Tensing, Griselda asked, "Isn't oblivion magic a dangerous magic?" Kai told her that everything was fine, because this magic was of a high level and did not involve any risks. When they sober up, they won't remember just the three of them. There is a bag of money on the floor. Griselda asks what they will do with them. Kai tells her that after compensation for the damage caused to this tavern, they will spend it on travel expenses. Urza's companions are tied up and grieving over the lost money. For Sasha, Kai's proposal sounds excellent. Griselda is standing at the table with a new omelet in front of her. She is happy that with this money they will also buy new clothes for themselves. Kai says that since they are in enemy territory, they need to find clothes that don't stand out, so they really need to buy new clothes. People sit, eat and talk. A man in a hood sits alone at the table. He turns around and looks at Griselda, Sasha and Kai. He has purple hair and glasses with red eyes underneath. Next day, a whole army of holy knights is walking along the road. Looking out the window, the men from the tavern ask what is there. The march stopped. A man with a beard, scratching his head, asks why so many knights are in their village. The sun is shining brightly. The commander, showing the projection of the main character, asks the men if they had encountered the intruder Kai Austin in the village. The man peers into the projection. Then he replies that he has not seen anything like this. He remembers that their money disappeared somewhere yesterday and demands the commander to pay for the information. The commander tells the soldiers that Kai did not appear in this village and orders them to go down even further south. The soldiers obey orders. With a smile, the commander concludes that this village is useless. Kai, Sasha and Griselda are on a high ledge. Sasha notices that people are crowded down there. Judging by the emblems, Sasha concludes that these are holy knights, and there are more than 300 of them. She says that these knights are probably the best of the best. Kai says that everything is exactly as the archdemon reported. However, the main character did not expect that after Mateo's poisoning they would react so quickly. 300 holy knights were already following the purifiers. Kai thinks that if they come out in such numbers, then without a doubt they will raise all their units. He wonders if Jonah isn't the only one fighting for a chance at a second life. Sasha looks down angrily. Kai thought about it. With a smile, Griselda tells Kai not to worry and declares that the holy knights will die at the hands of those they wanted to kill. Kai looked at her sharply. Then he thought with relief that this was reassuring and smiled. Then he says to himself that he will never forgive the holy knights. The moment they raised their hand to Colette, their fate was decided. Kai clenches his fist. He then approaches Griselda and Sasha and wants them to do something, namely, so that they kill every single holy knight. Both girls frowned resolutely. Kai adds that they should kill all the knights without damaging their flesh. The knights continue to march. Griselda, confused, asks why kill them in such a roundabout way. Sasha assumes that this is part of Mr. Kai's plan. She says that before them are selected knights, but they are also disadvantageous opponents with all the light attributes and asks Kai how they can achieve what he wants. The main character answers that it is very simple. He says that they will take revenge on the purifiers under unfavorable conditions and asks the girls to remember that they are incredibly strong. They look at him. Griselda declares that they will fight with all their might. Rubbing his hand, Kai said that they would then leave. Then he notices something. This is movement in the bushes. Kai notes to himself that someone is spying on them and believes that the spy has no malicious intent. An army of knights walks along the green grass. They drag a cart with sacks behind them. The commander says with a smile that the previous guys didn't have a penny under their belts. He says that he thought that chasing the demon lord would be a big task, but if you treat idiots like gods, then you can get anything from them, and that's great. The cart contains the stolen goods. Both men lie unconscious. Then in the distance the commander notices something. It's Kai, standing in the open in the distance. He turns to the troops and looks down at them. Having put out his shield and sword, the commander asked if Kai had finished playing hide and seek. The knights lined up behind him and also took a fighting stance. Kai asked them if Colette was okay and only got a chuckle in response. The commander mockingly asked what Kai would do even if he found out. He states that Kai is not an aristocrat to decide such matters. In his opinion, Colette lives for the sake of the church and must die for it. Kai called the knights scum. This is enough for him. Chaos begins in the back ranks of the knights. The commander does not understand what is happening and turns around. Screams of pain are heard. Sasha, flying overhead with a knife in his hands, strikes one knight after another. The knights avoid her. The commander, almost in a panic, asks what is happening there. One knight says with fear in his eyes that they are under attack. He immediately cuts his neck. Blood splashes. His two partners look at him in horror. Reisler runs her claws through the two, a bloody trail of magic following her hands. The commander looks at the carnage in confusion and says that this cannot be because there are about 300 of them, knights. Kai phlegmatically notes that it seems that his turn will not come. Sasha knocks the knight out. Griselda strangles another with magic. She then proudly walks away, leaving many corpses in her wake. Sasha, holding a knife to the commander's throat, asked Kai for orders on what to do with the last knight. Kai is wondering if it would be better to use him somehow instead of just killing him. Kai asks for time to think. The commander begins to sweat, looking at the knife pointed at him. Griselda reports to Kai that she has collected all the corpses. Then she proudly says that the dead have all their body parts in place, both arms and legs. There is a mountain of corpses in front of Kai. With a smile, he says that Griselda and Sasha are great, they did a great job. The girls looked at each other and smiled. Griselda searches the pockets of the dead and says that they have everything stolen there. Carrying another knight on her shoulder, Sasha says that these knights are more rotten than she thought. Kai looks at this picture sadly. He is sure that everyone is completely satisfied, then he is going to use magic on them. Griselda, spreading her arms and standing in front of a pile of dead bodies, asks Kai what to do with them. The protagonist replies that they will turn them into comrades. Sasha and Griselda froze in surprise. Kai uses forbidden magic, which is considered a rebellion against God. Pentagrams appear around his hands, with smoke flowing from underneath them. He's tense. In his first life, he had never used such magic. Sasha and Griselda look at her. Griselda notes that this is totem magic. The entire forest lit up crimson. Kai, although he never used such magic in his first life, uses it in his second. Blood begins to boil around the dead. This is necromancy. The eyes of the dead glowed red, and they rose to their feet with terrible screams. Their stance is precarious and shaky, but they stand. Griselda is horrified. She cannot believe her eyes and says that this is high-level magic to control the souls of the dead. Griselda says that Kai used such magic on an incredible scale, and now she understands why he said not to injure corpses. The commander sank to the ground, surrounded by his former soldiers. They are proactive, brave, and have no fear of death. The commander does not know what to do. He is terrified. Kai says that these knights, among other things, have excellent weapons because their bodies once served the church, and therefore there is no better military power than they have now. Turning to the commander, Kai called these knights a legion of the dead. Stammering, the commander said that God would not forgive Kai. He, after a pause, asked with a terrible look what kind of God he was talking about. Kai, remembering the imprisoned Colette, says that if God really existed, he would protect people. He then says that if God dares to contact him, he will not forgive him. The commander was furious at such words, but did not say anything. Kai promised himself that he would do anything to save Colette. Turning to the commander, he asked what his name was. Kai then gives him a choice: become the Demon King's subordinate or become part of the Legion of the Dead. The commander is trembling in horror. The system congratulates Kai for turning 300 holy knights into undead and gives him 12 points. The archdemon flew in and reported that he had destroyed the enemy scouts, and now they would not have time to report to Ion about what had happened here. Griselda, looking at the sky, asked who it was. Kai praises the archdemon. Griselda says that this creature cannot be an archdemon and exclaims that Kai was just joking. Both girls look at the archdemon with emotion. The latter, flying up to Kai's ear, wants to report to him about something else. Kai understood what was going on. He then said that they needed to get rid of that too. In the bushes you can see a hooded man who is watching everything. Forest. Ares walks forward staggering and annoyedly asks himself why he looks like this. Then his face twists when he remembers that it all happened because of his brother. He fell helplessly to his knees. Then he fell face down. A rich carriage drove by. The coachman turned his attention to the prone Ares. He howled pitifully. An aristocratic woman and her servant look at him sympathetically from the carriage window. Night, rich mansion. Ares wraps spaghetti on his fork and, laughing, says that he almost died in the forest. The aristocrat sits opposite him. With a smile, she says that she is glad that she saved Ares. She says she couldn't even imagine meeting a hero. Ares licks everything from the plate to the last crumb. After a short silence, with the same polite smile, the woman asked how the hero ended up in such a place on the verge of life and death. Ares clenched his teeth in anger. The action is postponed to 3 days ago. There are guards standing in front of the gates of the Marquis Austin's house. Ares demands that they let him in immediately and declares that he is the son of the Marquis of Austin. The guards respond that they cannot let him in. Exposing the back of his hand, Ares demanded that these men look at this sparkling, shining, iridescent light of his sign. He then shouts that he is a hero. Isn't that clear? The man, frowning suspiciously, said that this sign was not trustworthy. He then said that if Ares showed his holy sword, he would immediately be reported to his father. Ares furiously repeats that his sword is broken. The guard calmly tells him that the holy sword cannot break. Ares calls the guard a scoundrel, demands that they not argue with him, and raises his hand. The man calmly intercepts her. Then he notices something. The mark on Ares' hand changed from the mark of a hero to the mark of a black magician. The guard says that Ares has finally shown his true nature and calls him a hated black magician. Then Ares noticed what had happened to his mark, and his hand trembled. He looks at the changed sign with misunderstanding and disgust. Sighing irritably, the guard concludes that Ares' words that he is a hero are just empty chatter. He states that they will not allow him to pass and will fight back. The guard crossed his arms. Ares wants to calm them down, but he himself is at a loss. Flexing his fist, the guard says that he has been holding a grudge against Mr. Ares for a long time and asks his permission to now thank him for this. Ares, holding out his hands in a conciliatory manner, says that the guard has messed up something and asks to listen to him. However, he is still beaten. After that, he falls face down into the dusty road. The guard was pleased with his revenge. Another ordered Ares not to appear here again. The action moves to the present. Remembering all these moments, Ares sits at the table, shaking with rage, and promises himself that he will never forgive them and will definitely take revenge on them one day. The aristocrat carefully calls out to him. With an irritated sigh, Ares tells her that it is none of her business. Looking away guiltily, the woman says that Ares is right and asks for his forgiveness. She assumes that Ares is tired and asks him to get a good rest tonight. Meanwhile, Ares takes a closer look at the woman. He notes to himself that her face is okay and her breasts are just right because the privilege of a hero allows him to do such things. Rising from the table and smiling, the woman said that she was also tired from the journey and went to rest. She asks Ares to feel free here and tells him that he can do whatever he wants. Ares is only happy about this. He's going to do just that. A woman and a servant walk along the corridor. The servant calls Ares a fastidious young man. The woman tells him that Ares probably has reasons for this and reminds him that the heroes are people of high society, so there is nothing to worry about. Entering her chambers, the aristocrat told the servant that while she was resting, he could be free. The servant bowed. Meanwhile, Ares shouts with mad laughter that everything in this mansion is free for him. The servant looks at him confused. Standing in the same row as the maids, he asks them to repeat what Ares just said. Turning around, Ares irritably asked what they were all muttering and declared that he would incinerate everyone who stood in the way of him, the hero. Horrified, the servant says that this is recklessness and calls Ares a bandit. Ares asked if the mistress really told this servant to do whatever he wanted. Looking at his hand, Ares noticed to himself that his mark was still glowing and he could not understand what it was. He thought that some kind of curse had been placed on him and made the assumption that the time of action had already ended. Then he came to the conclusion that, if so, then he really could do whatever he wanted. With a pitiful smile, he said that he had finally become a real hero. He ordered the most beautiful women to be prepared for him. Angry, the servant shouted that such an order was somewhat strange. Pointing his finger at Ares, he said that he did not look like a hero at all and ordered the guards to seize him. The guards obey orders. A tall man stands in front of Ares. Smiling smugly, Ares asks him if he is confident in his actions. He asks if this man really wants to go against the hero. He then asks if this means that he is going against the sacred capital and siding with the demon lord. Ares tells the man that if he does not want to be executed, then it is better for him to remain silent. The man looks at Ares with impotent anger. Laughing disgustingly, Ares demanded that they bring him money and women. Bags of money fall in front of him. Looking out of her chambers, the aristocrat asked what the noise was. She enters the room and sees her servant standing obediently in front of Ares, who is looking at her with his hands on his hips. There are huge bags of money on the floor. The woman covered her mouth with her hand in horror. The maids look at her with a feeling of guilt, but they can't do anything. The servant shields himself from such a shameful sight and tells his mistress to return to her chambers. Ares pushed him away roughly. With a smile, he called the aristocrat young lady and ordered her to lead him to his chambers. The aristocrat indignantly asks what Ares is saying. Proudly displaying his mark, Ares says that this woman also gets in the way of the hero. The noblewoman exclaims that, judging by the mark, Ares is not really a hero. Ares' mark changed to dark again. He was confused. His ambition was blown away by the wind. He stares blankly at his mark and shakes his head. Frustrated, he wonders why his mark changed to Black Magician again. The servants, the aristocrat, and the others look at him angrily. Ares realizes he has problems. The woman orders the guards to seize him. Ares runs away and shouts that he will never forgive them. Cursing and running, Ares insists that he is a hero, but he doesn't know how to prove it to everyone. Full moon, forest. Ares, beaten, with an arrow in his back and a sore arm, covered in blood, walks along a forest path. He wearily says that they really wanted to kill him. Angrily, he tries to understand why the mark is changing. Is the curse really not being lifted? Stopping far from the village, Ares says that it is better for him to first return to the Austin domain and wait there, because there are many people who do not know about the situation. In the village, a notice was hung on one of the walls and people crowded around it. One man recognizes the son of the Marquis of Austin pictured in this ad. Ares is wanted. The advertisement states that he is a villain and promises payment for his capture and delivery to the lands of the Marquis, alive or dead.